Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have a story that has absolutely sent shockwaves through the entire tennis world. We are talking about an earthquake on the grass courts of Germany. If you had told anyone just 24 hours ago that the reigning world number 2, the 2022 Wimbledon champion, the absolute powerhouse from Kazakhstan, Elina Rybakina, would be packing her bags and exiting the Berlin Open in the round of 16, they would have called you crazy. But that is exactly what happened. And it wasn't just a defeat. It was a stunning come-from-behind masterclass delivered by none other than 21-year-old Filipina sensation Alexandra Eala. Let that sink in for a moment. Alexandra Eala, playing on a wild card, has just pulled off the biggest victory of her young career, defeating Elina Rybakina in straight sets 7-5, 6-4, right there on the hallowed grounds of the Steffi Graf Stadion. All of Kazakhstan is absolutely shell-shocked today, while the Philippines is erupting in massive celebration. How did this happen? How did a rising star completely dismantle one of the most feared, dominant servers in the women's game, especially on grass, which is universally considered Rybakina's fortress? Let me tell you, this was not a fluke. This was a tactical, psychological, and physical triumph that demands our full attention. Eala was staring down the barrel of a 4-1 deficit in the very first set, a position where most players simply fold against Rybakina's booming serve. Instead, Eala flipped the script, broke down the Kazakhs game, and marched straight into the quarterfinals. In today's incredibly deep dive analysis, we're going to break down every single layer of this monumental match. We're going to look at the exact tactical adjustments Eala made, the surprising statistical breakdown that exposes a glaring weakness in Rybakina's armor, the history of their rivalry, and what this seismic result means as we hurtle toward Wimbledon. Grab a drink, settle in, and let us dissect the day the tennis world stood still. To truly understand the magnitude of what unfolded on the pristine grass of the Steffi Graf Stadion in Berlin this Thursday, June the 18th, 2026, we must first set the stage and look at the sheer contrast between these two athletes entering the match. On one side of the net, you have Elina Rybakina. The Kazakhstani superstar, currently ranked number 2 in the world, is practically synonymous with modern grass court tennis. Standing tall, armed with a serve that routinely clocks in as one of the fastest and heaviest on the Women's Tennis Association Tour, she has the kind of effortless power that can hit any opponent off the court in less than an hour. She won Wimbledon in 2022, proving that her flat, penetrating ground strokes and unreturnable first serves are perfectly suited for the low-bouncing, fast-paced grass surface. Coming into Berlin, Rybakina was a heavy favorite not just to win this match, but to lift the entire tournament trophy as her final tune-up before returning to the All-England club. On the other side of the net, you have Alexandra Eala, a 21-year-old wild card from the Philippines, a graduate of the Rafa Nadal Academy, and a player who has been steadily, sometimes quietly, grinding her way through the ranks. Eala has always possessed immense potential, capturing junior Grand Slam titles and showing flashes of brilliance, but the leap from junior phenom to consistent top-tier giant slayer is notoriously difficult. Yet, she arrived in Berlin riding a massive wave of confidence, having recently captured the Birmingham Open title, which was her second WTA 125 crown overall. She showed her grass court pedigree right out of the gate in Berlin by dispatching the newly crowned Queen's Club champion Donna Vekic in the opening round 7-5, 6-4. But playing Donna Vekic is one thing. Stepping onto the court against the world number 2, Elina Rybakina, is an entirely different beast. Furthermore, there was a heavy narrative of revenge lingering in the Berlin air. Just last month, during the clay court season, Rybakina had faced Eala at the Italian Open in Rome. In that encounter, Rybakina utilized her massive forehand to push Eala out of the court, eventually dismissing the Filipina 6-4, 6-3. The prevailing question heading into this Berlin rematch was simple. If Eala couldn't handle Rybakina's raw power on the slow, forgiving clay of Rome, how on earth was she going to survive it on the lightning-fast grass of Germany? The match began exactly as the odds-makers and the stunned Kazakhstani fans initially expected. Rybakina came out firing absolute missiles. The first serve was clicking instantly, finding the corners with devastating accuracy. When Rybakina is landing her first serve on grass, the match is usually played entirely on her terms. You are merely a passenger reacting to her incredible pace. Within the blink of an eye, Rybakina raced to a commanding 4-1 lead in the opening set. She was dominant, hitting aces. She would actually go on to hit an impressive 13 aces in match, and dictating the baseline rallies with her signature flat backhands and sharp cross-court forehands. At 4-1 down, the writing seemed to be securely on the wall. For a young player like Eala, the easiest thing in the world would have been to accept that the world number 2 was simply unplayable today, to mentally check out first set, and maybe try to regroup for the second. But this is exactly where the narrative completely fractures. This is where Alexandra Eala demonstrated a level of mental fortitude and tactical maturity that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she belongs in the elite tier of women's tennis. Down 4-1, Eala completely reset her mind. She didn't panic. She didn't start overhitting in a desperate, wild attempt to match Rybakina's power, which is a lethal trap so many players fall into. Instead, she decided to change the fundamental geometry of the court. Eala started to focus intensely on her return position. Rather than trying to hit clean, highlight reel winners off Rybakina's massive first serves, she deliberately shortened her backswing, focused on simply neutralizing the massive pace, and meticulously aimed her returns deep down the middle of the court. By keeping the ball central and deep, she successfully robbed Rybakina of the sharp, aggressive angles the Kazakhstani star loves to exploit. Simultaneously, Eala recognized a glaring vulnerability that the casual observer might have missed, but the post-match statistics highlight brilliantly. Rybakina's first serve was a weapon of mass destruction, but her second serve was incredibly, almost shockingly, fragile on this particular day. The statistics from the match tell a staggering story. Rybakina won a brilliant 81% of her first serve points, but her second serve points won percentage, a disastrous 35%. That is a completely unacceptable number for the world number 2. Eala keyed in on this weakness with the cold precision of a surgeon. The very moment Rybakina missed the first serve, Eala stepped aggressively inside the baseline, took the ball incredibly early on the rise, and unleashed heavy, dictating topspin returns that pinned Kazakh deep behind the baseline, immediately putting Rybakina on the defensive. Let's take a moment to really drill down into the biomechanics and the specific stroke techniques that define this encounter, because that is where the match was truly won and lost. Elina Rybakina's serve is often described as one of the most fluid motions on the tour. It is a kinetic chain masterpiece. She tosses the ball slightly further into the court than most players, allowing her to use her height and forward momentum to hit down on the ball, creating an incredibly flat, penetrating trajectory that skids aggressively off the grass. When it works, it is mathematically untouchable. But the flip side of that highly aggressive toss is that if her timing is off by even a fraction of a second, or if the mental pressure mounts, the second serve becomes extremely vulnerable because she doesn't naturally use as much heavy kick or slice to protect it. Today, we saw that exact vulnerability exposed in raw daylight. Once Eala neutralized that first serve rhythm, Rybakina's mechanics started to break down under the relentless pressure. Now, compare that to Alexandra Eala's ground strokes. You can absolutely see the heavy, enduring influence of the Rafa Nadal Academy in her forehand technique. She employs a modern, semi-Western grip, generating massive amounts of racket head speed and heavy topspin. Usually on a grass court, where the ball tends to stay low and skid, hitting with excessive topspin can sometimes be a distinct disadvantage because the ball sits up right into the opponent's strike zone. However, Eala brilliantly adapted her swing path for this specific match. Instead of her loopy, heavy topspin clay court forehand, she flattened out her trajectory just enough to keep the ball low and piercing, while maintaining exactly enough spin to ensure safety and depth. It was a tactical masterstroke. By driving the ball deep and low into the corners, she forced Rybakina to constantly hit from below her knees. For a tall player like Rybakina, having to continuously bend and scrape low balls off the slick grass is physically exhausting and mechanically awkward. This constant disruption of Rybakina's strike zone is exactly why the Kazakhstani star committed so many unforced errors as the match dragged on. Eala wasn't just hitting the ball over the net. She was orchestrating a biomechanical nightmare for her opponent. By constantly attacking the second serve and keeping the ball low, Eala managed to completely disrupt Rybakina's rhythm. The pressure began to mount exponentially. You could see the frustration visibly washing over the former Wimbledon champion. The Kazakhstani star, usually known for her ice-cold, emotionless demeanor, started rushing her service motions. At 4-1 down, Eala held her serve, making it 4-2. Then, she created a breakpoint opportunity by punishing another weak second serve and converted with authority, pulling back to 4-3. Suddenly, the momentum had violently shifted. Eala held her serve again to level the set at 4-4. The crowd at the Steffi Graf Stadion, initially subdued by Rybakina's early dominance, started to buzz with electricity. They were witnessing a real-time masterclass in problem-solving. They remained locked on serve until the score was 5-5. This was the crucible. This was the exact moment where champions are forged. Rybakina stepped up to serve, desperately trying to secure at least a tiebreak. But the immense pressure Eala had steadily applied over the last 30 minutes finally broke the dam. Rybakina's reliable first serve deserted her completely. She threw an uncharacteristic double fault. She would hit 4 in the entire match, and Eala pounced without hesitation. The 21-year-old Filipina secured the crucial break of serve, taking a 6-5 lead. Serving for the set against the world number 2, the nerves should have been astronomical. Yet, Eala stepped to the line and delivered a phenomenal service game. Let's talk about Eala's serve for a moment. She ended the match winning 72% of her first serve points and an incredible 67% of her second serve points. Let me repeat that. To win 2/3 of your second serve points against a relentless ball striker like Rybakina is nothing short of miraculous. It means Eala was brilliantly mixing up her spins, hitting her spots flawlessly, and never giving Rybakina a stationary target to tee off on. Eala held serve, closing out the first set 7-5. From 4-1 down, she had won 6 of the next 7 games. It was a breathtaking, logic-defying turnaround. It is also vital to talk about the actual court conditions here at the Berlin Open to fully appreciate the second set. The Steffi Graf Stadion features a grass surface that is meticulously manicured, but often plays slightly differently than the courts at Wimbledon. The Berlin grass tends to be a bit firmer early in the tournament, offering a very true, incredibly fast bounce. This is exactly why a big server like Rybakina is usually so heavily favored here. The ball zips through the court, giving returners virtually zero time to prepare. Eala's ability to track the ball, read Rybakina's service toss, and react with such explosive quickness on this specific type of lightning-fast grass speaks volumes about her physical conditioning. Her split step was perfectly timed, allowing her to explode laterally the millisecond Rybakina made contact with the ball. Without that elite level of footwork and eye-hand coordination, Eala's tactical adjustments would have been completely useless. The surface demanded absolute perfection, and the Filipina delivered it. As the second set commenced, the psychological landscape of the match had been entirely rewritten. The hunter had officially become the hunted. All of Kazakhstan watched in pure disbelief as their grass court queen found herself backed into a corner by a player she had comfortably beaten just a few weeks prior. Rybakina tried to reassert her authority early in the second set, attempting to flatten out her ground strokes, even more to hit directly through the heavy court coverage Eala was employing. But the courts were playing right into Eala's hands because she was moving with spectacular agility. Eala's footwork was absolutely mesmerizing. She was tracking down balls in the deep corners that 90% of the tour would have simply given up on, and not just returning them, but returning them with venom. Eala was absorbing the massive pace of Rybakina's shots and seamlessly redirecting it down the lines. The statistics from the second set are a massive testament to Eala's clinical execution under pressure. While Rybakina was blasting her aces, it was Eala who was actually dominating the crucial, high-leverage moments. In professional tennis, you don't need to win the most points. You just need to win the right points. Out of 7 breakpoint opportunities in the match, Eala converted 3. That is a highly efficient, ruthless conversion rate against a top-tier server. On the flip side, Rybakina was completely starved of opportunities, managing only 2 breakpoints in the entire match and converting just 1, which happened during that initial first set flurry. This tells us that after the 5th game of the first set, Eala essentially locked a heavy iron door on her own serve. She did not give Rybakina a single look, a single open window to climb back into the match. The tension in the second set reached an absolute boiling point as the games progressed on serve. You could practically sense that Rybakina was desperate to find a sudden breakthrough, but Eala simply refused to yield an inch. Eala's baseline game was a perfect, harmonious blend of aggressive defense and highly calculated offense. She was hitting with remarkable depth, keeping the ball within inches of the baseline, which physically prevented Rybakina from stepping into the court to dictate the tempo. And when Rybakina tried to force the issue and manufacture a winner out of nothing, she began hemorrhaging unforced errors. The frustration on the court was thick enough to cut with a knife. The Kazakhstani team in the players' box looked totally stunned, exchanging nervous, confused glances as their champion continuously failed to find answers. At 4 games, a 4 in the second set, history repeated itself in dramatic fashion. Rybakina, serving to stay ahead in the set, blinked. The dark ghost of her second serve haunted her once again. Eala, smelling absolute blood in the water, unleashed a heavy barrage of deep, penetrating returns. Rybakina pushed awkwardly onto her back foot, dumped a crucial, seemingly routine forehand into the net, giving Eala the decisive break and a 5-4 lead. The stadium fell to a hushed, breathless silence as Alexandra Eala stepped up to the baseline to serve for the absolute biggest victory of her life. Serving out a match against a top 5 player is arguably the hardest, most psychologically taxing thing to do in professional tennis. The finish line is so incredibly close, yet your mind starts playing terrible tricks on you. Your arm gets heavy, your feet stop moving, your breathing becomes shallow. But Eala showed the ice-cold veins of a seasoned 10-year veteran. She didn't alter her strategy one bit. She didn't play safely, just to push the ball in. She completely trusted the aggressive game plan that had brought her back from the brink in the first set. She fired a massive, sweeping first serve out wide, pulling Rybakina entirely off the court, and calmly put away the open court winner. She went up 40-love, bringing up triple match point, and on the very first opportunity, another forced error from Rybakina sealed the deal. Game, set, match, Alexandra Eala. 7-5, 6-4. The post-match celebration was one of pure, unadulterated joy, a beautiful, emotional culmination of years of brutal hard work, sacrifice, and relentless self-belief. Eala dropped her racket, put her hands to her face in sheer disbelief, and soaked in the thunderous, well-deserved applause from the awestruck German crowd. She had just slain a true giant. She had just exacted perfect revenge for her stinging loss in Rome. She had just extended her phenomenal grass court winning streak, having come off the Birmingham Open title and dispatching Donna Vekic, proving this was no fluke. Now, we have to talk about the massive, tour-altering implications of this result, because this is not just an isolated upset. This is a seismic shift in the tour's landscape just days before the most prestigious tournament in the world begins. For Elina Rybakina and the entire Kazakhstani Tennis Federation, alarm bells are absolutely ringing at maximum volume. To be systematically dismantled in straight sets on your absolute favorite surface, a surface where your serve should make you virtually untouchable, is a massive cause for deep concern. The complete inability to protect her second serve today, winning only 35% of those points, is a glaring, massive flaw that every single coach in the WTA locker room will be circling with a red marker tonight. Was it a lingering physical issue we don't know about? Was it deep mental fatigue from a grueling, grinding clay court season? Or did Alexandra Eala simply provide the definitive, perfect blueprint on exactly how to neutralize the Rybakina powerhouse? Whatever the underlying reason, Rybakina now faces an anxious race against time to rebuild her shattered confidence and significantly tweak her game before the gates open at Wimbledon. She is still a phenomenal champion, and nobody in their right mind should count her out. But the heavy aura of invincibility she proudly carried on grass has been definitively, violently pierced. Conversely, what does this monumental win mean for Alexandra Eala and the entire nation of the Philippines? In a word, everything. This is a massive watershed moment for Southeast Asian tennis on the global stage. Eala has definitively proven that she is no longer just a highly touted promising prospect. She is a dangerous, present-day contender capable of hanging with and decisively defeating the absolute best in the world. This victory will undoubtedly catapult her rankings, but far more importantly, It will absolutely skyrocket her self-belief. When you step onto court and beat the world number 2, a former Wimbledon champion, on her best surface, in straight sets, coming from significantly behind, you suddenly realize that the ceiling on your career simply does not exist. Eala is now set to face Elina in the quarterfinals, which will be another massive, grueling test against a highly experienced and incredibly tenacious competitor. But after what we all just witnessed today, would you really bet against the young Filipina? She currently has the unstoppable momentum of a runaway freight train as she heads toward Wimbledon, where she is making only her second main draw appearance. Alexandra Eala has suddenly and dramatically transformed from a quiet, dark horse into a genuine, terrifying threat to the entire draw. Absolutely no seeded player is going to want to see the young Filipina's name anywhere near them in the brackets. She has comprehensively demonstrated that her game translates beautifully and violently to the grass. Her lateral movement is impeccable. Her elite ability to absorb heavy pace and hit back with aggressive depth is top tier, and her staggering mental toughness to recover from 4-1 down against an unbreakable server is the unmistakable hallmark of a future Grand Slam champion. As we wrap up this extensive breakdown, it is truly hard to overstate just how historic today's match was for the sport of tennis. We witnessed a 21-year-old rising star boldly step onto the grass of the Steffi Graf Stadion, look directly across the net at a reigning titan of the sport, and absolutely refuse to back down an inch. Alexandra Eala's 7-5, 6-4 victory over world number 2 Elina Rybakina is an absolute masterclass in resilience, tactical brilliance, and sheer, unbreakable willpower. From a daunting 4-1 deficit in the first set, Eala engineered a stunning, unforgettable turnaround by ruthlessly exposing Rybakina's second serve, firmly locking down her own service games, and showing the entire world that she possesses the mental fortitude of a true champion. For Rybakina and her dedicated team in Kazakhstan, it is immediately back to the drawing board to desperately fix the glaring vulnerabilities exposed today before Wimbledon gets underway. But for Alexandra Eala and the millions of passionate fans watching back home in the Philippines, today is a day of monumental, historic celebration. A brand new force has officially arrived in the elite echelons of women's tennis. As she confidently marches on to the Berlin Open quarterfinals to face Svitolina, the entire tennis world will be watching her every single move. This is exactly the kind of breathtaking drama, shocking heartbreak, and incredible triumph that makes the sport of tennis so incredibly captivating to watch. What do you guys think about this massive upset? Is Alexandra Eala poised to make a massive, deep run at Wimbledon this year? And what exactly does Elina Rybakina need to fix to reclaim her dominant status as the undisputed queen of grass? I want to hear all of your thoughts, your wild theories, and your bold predictions down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this deep dive analysis and want more highly comprehensive breakdowns of all the biggest matches on the tour, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and turn on those notification bells so you never miss an upload. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's broadcast. Keep enjoying the beautiful game of tennis, and I will see you all in the next video.